Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Back. We are having a show. We've got with us Lt Col Dan Rooney, founder of Folds of Honor, good friend of the channel, T-38 extraordinaire, F-16 pilot, amazing human being, pro golfer.
That's right.
Coolest guy we know.
Noonan, welcome, man.
And he's taking over the channel.
Father of 5 daughters, which means I am a true fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Valid. Verified.
Correct.
The people that don't know, if you know, you know. But fighter pilots have daughters, about 10 to 1 the normal population. It may be urban legend, but it's been told so many times, right? It's like in the 90s, they did the study to see if G-forces killed the male sperm or the radar and all the above. But it is shocking the number of little women fighter pilots have. But God gives you what you need. That's
right. Yeah. Man. Well, I mean, Gonky got a traumatic brain injury out of it.
In my case, you had my from college.
Yeah, Noonan, you're a superhero, man. I have one daughter, and I'm terrified. So,
yeah.
But
crazy, yeah, man. Great to be with you guys. Thanks for
coming,
man. Thanks for just being excellent. I told you before we jumped on the air in our little pre-brief. Just such a fan, and was blessed to get to fly the mighty T-38 with you. And Gonky, you were undefeated with the world's greatest call sign.
Let's see if we can keep it going, Noonan. It's kind of a secret, though, so you're in the circle, my friend.
Oh, I won't say a word. I know this isn't endorsed by the DOD, so
you're right.
When people ask me the question, like, how do you get your call sign Noonan?
Yeah.
Well, it's because I'm a golf pro and a fighter pilot. Danny Noon's the main character in Caddyshack. That's not very cool. I'm like, I know.
Let me tell you.
One guy, his call sign's Gonky. It is undefeated. It's the greatest call sign ever. So there you go.
Well, thank you. Coming from you, Noonan, that means a lot, man. Thank you.
It is. And your delivery of what it means is as good as the call sign.
Oh, yeah.
It's already getting you in trouble. Think twice about having me on.
You stirred the pot, man. Yeah.
Past my bedtime.
Oh, geez. That's the best flying we've done. You know, I mean, you say what you want about the T-38A, but it was the greatest group of fighter pilots I've ever been with.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. That was a special time.
And my best friends.
Yeah. You know, the thing I liked most about it, Noonan, was you know, when I was a Navy guy, we're all Hornet guys, right? But when we were flying T-38s, you had A-10 guys, Strike Eagle guys. I mean, the gauntlet, and that's what made it so cool, you know?
Yeah.
One of the many things that made it so cool.
Noonan, we talked like a couple of years ago, like 2020 is the last time you've been on my channel, 2021. What have you been up to with Foles? Like, what's been going on?
Yeah, serving God and country in that order. There's a great Mark Twain quote. The 2 most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. Yep. And, you know, man, obviously I'm a fighter pilot, just love that chapter of my life. We're going to talk some flying in here, but it's just, I feel so blessed to be called on this Folds of Honor mission. And people that don't know, like the story, I call them moments of synchronicity or chance with a purpose, like how things enter your life and you never would imagine, like your channel right here. I mean, who would have ever thought, right? You look back. Day one. Must be present to win. Undefeated.
Right.
These inexhaustible truths in life. But I was, you know, I got back from my second combat tour of duty in Iraq and was on a commercial airliner. We pull into the gate in Grand Rapids, Michigan about midnight. And the captain announces that we're carrying the remains of Corporal Brock Buckland on the flight, who'd been killed in Iraq, and his identical twin brother, Corporal Brad Buckland, was in first class, and it brought him home. And, you know, we've all seen combat. We understand that freedom isn't free, seen lots of bad stuff, but I've never seen that side of war. And I sat that night and I watched the Buckland family on the darkest night of their lives, his brothers, his parents, his wife, and he had a 4-year-old son. And, you know, the finality of it hits you in a way that you just never really kind of connect to over the skies of Iraq, if you will. And anyway, ceremony finishes up, and despite the captain's request that night, more than half the people deboarded the plane. And it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, but man, they're all going to climb under that blanket of freedom. We'll all sleep under tonight, courtesy of Corporal Brock Buckland and the 1.1 million veterans who have joined the eternal ranks. And yeah, I had all kinds of emotions going through me. But it's like, we know the best emotion to get a fighter pilot going is piss him off. And so I was sad, but I was more pissed. And I just, felt this hand from God on me that night. And, called my wife, Jackie, walking up the jet bridge. I said, hey, this is going to sound crazy. But we're going to do something. I got to do something to help this young boy. And that was the beginning of Folds. About 6 months later, above our garage with nothing. I mean, obviously no money. I'm not very smart, no formal training. But that's, it goes back to that Mark Twain quote, man, that day you figure out why you're here. And that energy that comes from being on the right path in your life. And fast forward 17 years later, and we pumped out 62,000 scholarships, $300 million out the door. This class getting ready to open. If people are listening, watching tonight, our window for applications opens February 1st. So coming up to qualify, to be a family member of someone who's been killed or critically wounded, military and first responders. And, the class this year will be 12 to 13,000 strong. So close to $55 million in education going out the door. And you look at the fun stuff, like where does life take you? Like tomorrow at this time, I'll be on the Budweiser hitch with the Clydesdales in Nashville on the pub crawl. And that does not suck as your Uber to hit the bars with the CEO of Anheuser-Busch, who's our biggest sponsor. I got Bud and Bud Light behind me, but you talk about, combining what you do with who you are. And, they've donated like $26 million to us, took us to the NFL this year. It's just so cool, man, to get to wake up and every day know that if you don't make it to tomorrow, you were here today congruent to why God put you here. And that's to serve God, my family, my friends, and my country. And really, really cool. But yeah, so that's what Folds is up to. Working every day, man, on making sure we take care of these heroic families out there. And we added first responders, mover. A lot of people don't, connect that to your story. Mm-hmm. But it was during the COVID kind of BLM, defund the police. And as I watched it, it felt very much to me like it did in Vietnam when the guys were coming home. And I'm like, dude, come on. And as I dug into this first responder world, which I didn't really understand, not one, but it's every 6 seconds in this country, 911 is dialed. That's 240 million times a year. Guys like Mover will show up when you dial 911, regardless of where you live, how you vote, any of that stuff. And there is no organization in this country besides Folds providing financial, educational support to the families of fallen and disabled first responders. So that was really cool. Kickoff, unintended this year, because the NFL came on as a founding partner for that.
Really?
As well as Bud Light. So yeah, just, going 7 days a week, but I said almost unlimited energy when you're like, man, you're making a difference waking up every day.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome, Noonan. It's good to see though that you get a little bit of time at home, man, kind of unwind a little bit. I mean, did you get to spend at least get to spend the holidays with your family?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, we're good. We're 5 girls. Yeah. So it's it's fun, but my week's not terrible. I'm usually out a couple days a week. So it's manageable out there. And when you're called, like the disciples, man, leave the stuff that matters and go do my work. It makes it way easier going out your door, knowing that you're not going out to, sell lawnmowers or something. You're going out to, man, preach.
Not that there's nothing wrong with that.
We're not politically correct. We don't have to. You don't have to backstop.
Yeah, well, it's like the sign in every squadron. The world needs ditch diggers too. If you can't handle this, go. There's plenty of opportunities.
You want to hear a politically correct story? And we snooped this in the squadron. I hold the title for the shortest golf announcing career in history. You heard this story?
No.
You know what? I heard it a long time ago, but I forgot.
No,
I have catch-up
I
brain.
have
Go ahead,
not.
Noonan.
This is
Oh
new to
yeah,
me.
so I
Good one.
get my big break. You know, everybody wants to be somebody, and they're like, "Hey, you're decent at talking. You understand golf. You'll have a unique perspective. We'd like you to come on the Thursday broadcast of the PGA Championship." So this is one of golf's 4 majors. Thursday afternoon in the booth. We're gonna give you 2 hours. You know, I'm with 3 big time announcers there. It's so fun. We're having a great time. And then Phil Mickelson, you know, misses the green on like the 13th hole, and he's just off the green. And I'm like, you know, Phil Mickelson, if you're not a golfer, you know, this guy's got one of the greatest short games in history. And I'm like, oh man, Phil's got the best hands ever. Great friend. I was like, this chip is like clubbing a baby seal for him.
Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
And there's the door.
Yeah. So we call that in the fighter pilot business, when you're teaching people from different weapon systems, we call that negative transfer. So when one button does something different on a jet that doesn't transfer over, I remember we had an F-15 guy that came to the 16 and he couldn't get out of the chalks because the nose wheel steering button is another button in the F-15. But anyway, so that was negative transfer. And at the end of that day, they didn't escort me then. At the end of that day, I was supposed to announce on Friday, and they brought basically the Twitter feed. Who knew that PETA watched golf?
Oh no.
Yeah. Nobody understood the context of
the
Clubbing baby seals. It's a Dos Gringos song. I mean, it's in the lyrics. It's got to be safe.
Yeah, but like the fighter pilots don't always connect with the rest of the world. And it was the C-130 weapons school at Fort Huachuca, where I don't know if you guys ever did that, supported that, but they did this thing out at Fort Huachuca, and you come out and their last test was against an F-16, a C-130.
Oh wow!
And
really,
their only maneuver would be to turn this like super tight circle.
Yeah.
And you'd have to be able to come in, and it was actually very hard to gun them or shoot an AIM-9 because their heat signature was so low and they'd get down low. But at the end of it, you would eventually gun them, and you go back and you drink a beer and they'd give you a patch that had a C-130 like clubbing a baby seal. And I still,
awesome.
still have that patch.
Yeah, that's a very popular saying in the Navy too. Clubbing baby seals. I mean, yeah. I mean,
don't try that on TNT national golf broadcast.
No,
it's their loss, really. I mean,
it is their loss.
They lost out on the culture.
Yeah, 100%. They could have attracted a whole new swath of viewers.
Yeah.
That's just
that's the great thing about your culture. And I was talking to this about with General Courtwright. Reno and I played golf last week. You guys, awesome. The way you deliver it, you don't dumb down the IQ of fighter pilot speak, which makes it so authentic.
Because we don't know how. We're not smart enough to translate.
Yeah.
This is all we know.
But no, wait, all I heard was there's a real general that watches this show too.
He was on the show.
Yeah, he was. Reno was. Wow, he had an amazing story.
No, okay. So
Reno
was on. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great guy. I'm glad to hear he's still playing golf. That's good to hear.
Yeah. He asked about you, and there are lots of generals that watch your show. But at the end of the day, man, the world craves flawlessly authentic stuff, whatever it is. And I think it's one of the reasons Folds of Honor works, because it's real, man. It's a dude above his garage, and got Mover and Gonky sitting in their garages, pumping it out to the world.
But it's treadmill real, behind him.
That's why. Hey, it's my treadmill desk. Fitness is important, but that's why we do it live, Noonan. Like you can't
fake this.
No, I can't fake it. Sometimes I wish we could, but
yeah.
Stop tape.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
So are you still flying anything, Noonan? Do you get to go up and like, because now you're at the Tulsa, they got Vipers.
Yeah, so I just left the not that anybody cares, but I just left a 2-year stint at recruiting. And I transferred to the Oklahoma Guard. So where it all started for me, I was a guard baby F-16 guy here for 13 years. And yeah, so back in this world, I'm in a flying slot. I have no plans on flying. My back is absolutely toast at 52, among other things, which the VA says is fine. They're actually like, we think your back, we think you have a problem with your back, but your neck is a big fat 0, even though you can't look left or right.
Isn't that amazing?
You're like Batman. You walk.
Oh yeah. That's why I have a swivel chair.
Dr. Evil.
But so not flying, doing some public affairs stuff, recruiting stuff, but it's nice to come back to where I started. And I think the one great like fulfilling thing is, on drill weekends, still put the uniform on, which is so humbling because you think about the people that wore the uniform before you and what it represents. I've never lost that kind of little boy attitude when I pull the flight suit off the hanger and get to put that thing on and do your zippers check, walking out, being like, wow, I am so blessed to be part of this band of brothers and a few sisters now, and have gotten to do this for my life. Just the reverence and honor that comes with putting on the uniform is, I think, going to be way harder for me to give up than the jet was, because the jet hurt. Mover, and Gonky, what's your guys' military status currently?
Go ahead, Mover.
Gonky still doesn't know.
I'm the director of staff over at the 403rd Wing, C-130s, Flying Jennies, and Hurricane Hunters, and I work with the wing leadership. And it's actually, Noonan, no flying. They offered for me to go fly, but I probably will end up just retiring this year. But it's kind of a whole, all I've ever done in the military is be an operator of aircraft. And this is my first job where I'm basically mingling with people and like some of the people problems and stuff. And it's actually very interesting. And I enjoy it. It's something different. It's something different. And I've never been kind of on the inside of leadership at that level. So it's really interesting. And I feel very lucky and blessed to even have that opportunity, because the place that, we all came from there towards the end, especially for me and Mover, was a rather hostile environment. So very lucky to be where we're at.
It was called the Aggressor Squadron for a reason.
Right, but we were supposed to be aggressive too.
Somebody didn't get the memo of what that actually was supposed to mean.
Shoot yourself down. But I agree, Gonky, just to lean into that, not flying. Because flying, at the end of the day, it's fun and we're all cool and you're putting your speed jeans on. But your number one thing is to be alive at the end of the day. And it's a very myopic, focused job that does not allow you to like lean into people much at all, other than the bar afterwards with the guys hanging out and talking about the sortie.
Mover.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah.
I have the villain arc that didn't turn out to be a villain arc. Noonan, you talk about like synchronicity and things kind of just working out, and I cannot think of a better story than the one I've lived for the last 2 years for that very purpose. When I was probably at my lowest point, a hand reached out. Somebody I respect very much said, I'm going to take a chance on you. I became the IG at Keesler. So I went from asking for help to being able to help people. And during that time, I went from, hey, all I want to be is a fighter pilot, to there's something bigger out there to be able to help people with their problems and get the help that I didn't get, right? Because I went through some pretty rough times and I felt like the world was caving in. And instead, it made me better at a position I never knew I would have wanted to do. And so just like Gonky, I showed up at the wing and, I wasn't flying, and I kind of leaned into it. And amazingly, things changed. I went from kind of the bastard child to, they put my picture up in the Pentagon, because they're like, look, you're doing, he does this stuff with the therapy dog. Cause Luna and I turned losing my dogs into something good. I have one dog left and we became a team. And then from there, just following, exactly what you've done this year, they put out the Air Force Recruiting Service. They said, hey, we need social media ambassadors, which is a program you spearheaded. I know you and I talked 2 years ago when you were first starting it, trying to get it off the ground. And they said, we need people that want to show the Air Force mission in a positive light and use the followings that you have to do that, which is ironically part of the reason that I went through the slump. But it's funny that it worked out, because when they ask me, and I'm sure Noonan, you feel the same way, when they ask me, why do you want to do this? It's not because I want to show people how their lives can change, which is absolutely true. Like, you can go from trailer park to flying a fighter. You can go from any, Joe average, anything to whatever. But the real reason I do this, and the real reason I think the recruiting mission is so important as my side gig, is because the greatest threat we face as Americans and NATO and allies is not having enough capable, qualified bodies to fill those cockpits for the next conflict. And being able to do that, and being able to maybe say one day that I was the reason some kid joined and saved that platoon of Marines on the side of the hill, to me it's a powerful mission. And so I'm very honored that I was able to be selected for that. And hopefully that's something moving forward that I'll be able to continue to do. I even was convinced to do ACSC. I don't know why, but I angrily typed through these papers as Gonky makes fun of me. So I don't know what's next, but it's been an interesting transition lately. I miss flying. I'd love to go, do flying stuff again. But for now, it's been an interesting transition.
Yeah, good on you, man. And I totally agree. And people don't realize this, but in this country right now, 77% of the people in America, in the demographic 18 to 26, don't qualify to serve in any branch.
Wild.
23% that are left, only 1 in 10 express any interest. And the bottom line is, like, the Air Force, all the armed services, but the Air Force, we have a brand and outreach problem. Yep. People don't know what it is. People don't know people who serve. And that's what makes y'all show just so important, because they look at Mover and Gonky and say, dude, man, I want to be like those guys. I get it.
If they could do it, we can too.
Yeah. And that was the impetus of the ambassador program, is you got to show flawlessly authentic people that are out doing the job, because people don't know them, and they're not going to walk into a strip mall or hit the 1-800, go blue off the billboard on I-35. That is not where kids are. They are right here. So you better meet them in that place.
And you have to be honest with them. I mean, that's where I, say, look, don't just tell them, hey, it's the greatest thing in the world. Tell them the bad stuff too. Tell them the stuff. Be honest with them. Tell them, look, it's not always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes you're going to be embracing the suck, because that is a real saying we use in the military all the time.
Often.
But even the times, I was thinking about this the other day, about deploying, right? When you're there, you're like, God, this kind of sucks. I don't really want to be here. And then when you look back, you're like, dude, that was some of the greatest flying, greatest purpose I ever had, I wish I could go back now. You embrace it at the time, and then later on you're like, oh yeah, that wasn't so. I kind of missed that.
Yeah, because so much of life, man, it's not what you accomplish, it's what you overcome. And those deployments are where you build self-worth and self-belief in a way that most people never will in their lives. And I would say, because it's the whole balance of courage and comfort, man. They can't coexist. And going to do courageous stuff, the greatest reward on the other side is, man, you believe in yourself and you have purpose.
But I will say, and I think we say this on the channel a lot, which gets the trolls angry, peace is preferred.
Oh yeah.
Right? You want to be the warrior in the garden, not the gardener in the war. Right. So you want to be prepared, but nobody who's done it is like, we should fight every war and do we want peace. We're not warmongers. We want peace. We want peace through strength.
We do. And parity breeds chaos. It's undefeated.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen the last 4 years. Not getting political here, but it's reality. You see Putin, you see stuff going on with Hamas, you see China, all this North Korea stuff. Like, strong military needs to be there to keep people from doing stupid stuff. And I always looked at being a fighter pilot like we're the ultimate defense, because when we show up, everything stops.
Right.
Yeah. Noonan, you spent a lot of time flying the F-16. You know, how did you deal with just transitioning from one phase of your life to the next? Knowing, I mean, I know you talk about the higher purpose and stuff like that, but has it ever been like a tough transition going, hey, I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to be that fighter pilot anymore, or you're always a fighter pilot, but I'm not going to be the flying fighter pilot right now?
Yeah, I think for anybody, like, you can't become what you do in life, or you're going to have issues. And I still am a fighter pilot in that you use all of these lessons that we used as fighter pilots, like, every day. So my president at Folds is an F-16 guy, Colonel Nick. I flew my first combat mission with him in Iraq.
Oh, yeah.
We run that place like a fighter squadron. And awesome. With that kind of discipline, those objectives, so you connect to it in different ways. I got my helmet behind me. I'll tell you kind of a couple great fighter pilotisms people can probably use in their life. And going back to Luke Air Force Base, going through the RTU, one day stands out in my entire career, probably as a defining moment in my life. And it's you get to Luke, you go through academics, and you get 4 rides in the D model, and your 5th ride is solo, or you're in a prog checks, like you're days from being out of the program if you're not ready to solo. And I remember walking out to the jet that day, and you get strapped in, and I mean, at that point, you know what like half the buttons do still. I mean, you're just like, hey, you're not really kill anything. We're just trying to teach you how to successfully take off and land, shoot an approach, all that. So I get strapped into the jet about 10 minutes early, and I'm all by myself, and I'm, sitting there. It's pretty overwhelming. And I realized that I'm not alone. And I was 26 years old, and pretty much everybody in my life that had told me, dude, you're not good enough. You'll never make it. What a stupid dream this is. You're going to wash out, embarrass yourself. All the trolls in our lives, we all have them.
Yep.
That will try to make you a prisoner of common assumption, because they're too afraid to go. They sure don't want you to go and do it. So all these people have climbed in the cockpit with me, and, including my 8th grade English teacher that said I was so stupid, I'd never go to college, and all this. And I never forget. So I'm sitting there. This is a defining moment, right? I'm going to reach forward and hit start 2. There's no keys required to start a fighter jet. Like, I'm going to reach forward and hit that in like 4 minutes. And my helmet is sitting next to me on the canopy rail. So we set him over here on the canopy rail. It didn't have its visor on. I remember I ripped my helmet off, and I put my helmet on, right? And I put my dark visor down.
Yeah.
And I closed all of those people out of my life once and for all. Like, the instantaneous moment that you realize, like, man, you got to go live what's true to your heart. Don't live a life that others expect of you, or you're afraid of failure. And that was like defining moment 1 on that day. And like, everybody needs a dark visor in your life. I don't care who's listening and what you're trying to go do. There are going to be people that tell you it's never going to work. I mean, folds of honor. I have millions of dollars if I listened to everybody that hated honor and said it'd never work, or it's not worth it. You'll never make a difference. 17 years later, here we are. There's a great Wordsworth poem. Fighter pilots should not know poetry, but my daughter is a English graduate from Notre Dame in grad school, and so she shares poetry with me. It was a Wordsworth poem, and there was a stanza in it that was, "You come into this world trailing clouds of glory," and that's like so cool, the fighter pilot visual. But for all of us, like, dude, your essence precedes your existence. the life journey is figure out what that is. And God put you here for a reason, and then go do it. And for all of us, one of those big reasons was being a fighter pilot. It translates into every day, probably every hour of every day of our lives, what we've learned in that world. So anyway, I reach forward, hit start 2, go fly for an hour, come back, praying in my landing. But it's all good, and taxi back into the chalks. And I roll up this big bubble canopy, and it's like 120 degrees out on the tarmac in August and Luke, and you feel like the air feels cold when it hits you. And you look down, you're just like drenched in sweat because you've been so freaking nervous and in fight or flight this whole time. And I remember shutting the motor off. We got this big Pratt & Whitney underneath me, and those fan blades, that's just the best sound when those things are like ching, ching, ching.
Yeah.
And like my life anthem lands on my soul in this instant, and it is go before you're ready.
Oh, segue. This is like a.
If you go, I will always be with you. And that has been fundamental of like everything I've done in my life since that day. And I'm like, if you were going to push me, it's like the one strand of DNA that ties greatness together. I think are the people that figure out you're not going to have it all figured out. I'm just going to go, which is, we see it all the time, but the Mover and Gonky shows a go before you're ready. I mean, dude,
every episode.
Sometimes we're never ready. Yeah.
Very prepared on the air, but just the whole thought process of doing it. And it's like God, the universe, I don't care what you believe in.
Yeah.
It conspires for people that go before they're ready. And it's like, why is this so important? I read this the other day. It's so cool. So life is wildly short. It is going very fast for everybody. But if you block it out, so you're basically 0 to 18, you're an idiot growing up. The last 10 years of your life, you're old and doing nothing, like my parents right now. You sleep for 20 years. So you got 30 years of awake, meaningful time in your life to frickin' go as hard as you can every day. And see if you can make your life matter, because they're not going to remember you probably 1, let alone 2 generations from now. Anyway, and what a great, fun way to live, man. This reckless faith of, dude, let's just go. Yes, yes, and yes. And so for me, I'm not in the F-16 anymore, but the F-16's in me pretty much every moment of every day, because you are a fighter pilot, and the gifts that we have been blessed to learn and the people we have been blessed to go into the skies with. And you guys are at the top of my list, man. What a gift. And we got that forever, even if I don't get to feel the afterburner and kick me in the butt tomorrow morning, which you'll always miss. But, Tom Brady's career ends. It all comes to an end, but being a fighter pilot prepares you for what is next, as well as any occupation in the world.
And that, folks, is your Mental Health Minute, brought to you by Folds of Honor.
No, that's awesome.
And clip it.
So, dude, my 15-year-old daughter, this is so funny when you said that. So Reese, someone asked, hey, what's your dad like? And she's like, look at him. He looks like he's getting ready to speak wisdom all the time. It's scientific. It's called Into the Woods. It's a Buddhist thing. When you're over 50 like me, you walk into the woods and you speak in parables and one-liners. I'm sorry for my soapbox.
No, that's perfect. I'm sitting here just reminiscing about the good old days of Atlanta Motor Speedway. No more burner. Yeah, burner now.
There's a reason. I will not say it, but there's a reason why I said that. I will.
Gonky was not ready, but we went.
Gonky had the highest SA. Gonky had the highest SA, which is a shocker. So that was such a great trip, man.
Yeah, how cool was that? We got to do, for everybody listening, we got to do the flyby at the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 in Atlanta, all in the same formation. Everybody loves flybys. I think it's as much fun flying them as it is looking up. They're just like,
yeah.
you talk about inexhaustible, freaking awesome. Every time you see one, anywhere it is there anything more patriotic?
Well, and my favorite part still to this day is Gono. Love Gono. Gono is an absolute fine American. At the awards presentation, Brad Keselowski with the Monster Energy girls flanking us.
Yeah.
Brad turns around to thank us, for our service, and Gono goes, "You think you're fast? We just flew over this at 450 knots."
Shook his hand.
I love it, dude. That's just fighter pilot 101, man.
Gono's real name is Jesus. Jesus. Yes. And I always knew when he was in my formation, I'm like, I ain't going home today because I'm flying with Jesus.
Literally, Jesus is my co-pilot.
Literally,
he's my instructor.
That's awesome.
All right, so I got a question for you guys.
Send it.
You do such a great job, of analyzing the crazy stuff that happens in aviation. And before we came on the air, I'm like, hey, I want to ask you guys a question and put you on the spot. Like, we've all had a lot of them. We've all had many scary moments, or like, oh my gosh, I made it out of that alive. But share a story in your walk, fighter, GA, I don't care what it is, of a crazy flying story and what you learned to put in your bag of tricks on that day that made you better moving forward.
All right, Gonky, I got you. I'll let you think for a minute. It's funny you mentioned that, Noonan, because we talk about every time we do one of these mishap reports, reviews, especially on my channel. I always talk about there by the grace of God go I, because anybody, it could happen, right? The Swiss cheese model that lines up, or just sometimes the world conspires against you, and that's just the way things worked out, and you did your best. I remember my third or fourth. It was early on in my deployment. And if you remember, when new guys showed up to the desert, right, they wanted to put you on the day page because they didn't want young wingmen going out at night, unfamiliar. Balad is a black hole because there's no cultural lighting when you take off. And the F-16 is a spatial D machine. And I happened to be flying with a guy I've interviewed on my channel, Stinky, who had previously ejected from an F-16 because he got spatial D'd over the Gulf of Mexico and ejected, like, I think it was like less than a second before he's out of the envelope. He was just spiraling toward the water. So it was an emphasis item for him. And you're a young lieutenant. You think you got everything figured out, suitcased. I took off, and analog flight control system on the F-16. As soon as I took off, I get my master caution eyebrow lights, which lights up the canopy. It starts, everything reflects because it's nighttime. And I didn't do what they always tell you to do. Wait till you get some altitude, goggle, call visual, then we'll work the problem. I hear the master caution go off. So I'm like, flight controls. Oh, let me see. And I look back because everything's in the back corner. Your flick SPRY lights were all back there. And I look back and I'm like, okay, what am I working with? And when I looked forward, I had no idea what my horizon orientation was. No idea. I mean, I'm looking at it going, why is the HUD 90 degrees off? And now the altitude's going altitude, because I'm now slicing back through the horizon on departure in afterburner because we're still taking off because we got to get the, the speed to get out of the threat range. And that was one of those moments early on that stuck with me. But I recovered, then I confessed, then I start talking. He's like, are you okay? Get on the round dials. Let's talk this through. Handled everything. Jet ended up being fine, flew the combat mission, came back. But it was one of those early times in your career where you realize that you need to be on top of this at every moment and never get complacent, which still happens. I'm not going to say I never got complacent after that, but you still have to be in a respect the aircraft. You have to respect what you're doing, because if you don't, the next thing you know, you'll be upside down screaming toward the the dirt, and recovering at 800 feet or 600 feet or whatever it was. It was pretty low. I mean, it was sub 1,000 feet. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is because it just kills people. So for me, and the best part about it, and you, again, with the synchronicity stuff, is he was my flight lead. So he was the one we sat down, I confessed, we talked about it, and he told me his story, and he shared a lot of wisdom to me that made it okay. You know what I mean? It wasn't something where I just was like, oh God, what did I do? I learned from his experience and my experience, put the two together, and was like, okay, I respect this and I need to do better next time.
Yeah. So Balad, I flew out of Balad, and right before I got there, a month before I got there, Sonny Sonnenberg. So he had the same thing. He was an experienced major, maybe lieutenant colonel, on takeoff out of Balad. And I ended up flying the accident profile in the sim. We got the accident board because we were next up. So they passed it to us. And I sat in the sim, and, he's on takeoff. And there was a reason we'd get to, was it 1,500 feet AGL before we gog up? Don't quote me on the number. It's been a long time. But you focus solely on instruments, getting away from the ground, getting stabilized. And he leaned over to get his goggles, and jet starts going like this, and he doesn't recognize it and flies into the ground. And his kid was a Folds of Honor recipient.
Oh, wow.
But it's so dangerous. And the F-16, that was the thing that anybody who's flown it just scares the crap out of you, because you are 5 seconds from spatial disorientation in ways that you can't ever explain to people. You sit in this bubble and the airplane does not talk to you. It's, you can be doing 500 knots in the middle of the night over Iraq, and it feels like you're sitting in your chair right now. It just gives you nothing back. And man, everybody's been in there. And the longer you fly it, the scarier it gets, because you never know when that spatial thing's going to jump on your back in that airplane. And it's like the accident you guys just reviewed, was it last month, where that young wingman just had like everything.
Oh, the South Korea F-16. Yeah.
I mean,
in the weather, and
team guy says, "Oh, I would have handled that." They're lying. That is, you cannot make up that kind of perfect storm. But yeah, that's a great one, man. It's all like, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Has always been my motto. Every time I fly, I'm like, what is gonna go epically wrong today? And have I thought about it so it's not unexpected? Every time I pull on the runway, I'm going through my takeoff critical action procedures of, all right, man, I got to fire. Here's how I'm aborting. Here's what I'm going to do if I lose an engine climbing away.
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you got, Gonky? It's got to be from the boat. The F-16 guys talking about land and all this.
Tell you guys a landing story. No, but hey, to add to what you're saying about spatial D and fighters, I mean, the reason why the F-16, correct me if I'm wrong, is such a spatial D monster, you don't have the canopy bow, right? So you're just sitting on the tip of
no reference. Yeah, you're on the tip of the missile. You are the seeker of the AIM-9.
So, in the Hornet, you do have a canopy bow, but, being a carrier pilot out over the water in the middle of the ocean, it is dark, like zero lighting. And then you get on a night where there's no stars. So, I've had several of those, not quite as scary as that, but like you learn really quick. You're on your instruments. Like even, there's no messing around, because like you guys said, you can get away from it pretty quick. And we've lost guys in the Navy too, from spatial D, even getting launched off the catapult spatial D, because it's right into the darkness. But for me, probably one of the more scary stories that I had, Noonan, was when I was Lieutenant JG. So I'd been in the squadron for about 4 months, and it was my first time going back to the boat. So you go to the boat in training, you do your day and night, but it's very, it's CQ, it's very controlled. I get to my fleet squadron, right? I'm a big boy now. And I'm with my bros and we're having a good time and I'm really bonding with everybody, enjoying myself. And we get out, we're doing this exercise off the coast of California. And for whatever reason, I think it's the torque tube. The torque tubes were sheared in the jets because they were getting old. So our jets were down. We borrowed 2 jets from our sister squadron, the Argos. And I was a new guy. My buddy Shady was the new guy. So it was nighttime. They're like, you guys, it was getting in the evening tonight. They're like, you two are going to go fly. So I got lucky. I got the evening flight. Shady got the night flight. But the carrier was lightly loaded because they were just kind of doing a deck cert. So just kind of easing the crew on the deck, easing them into handling aircraft, right? Doing training. Boat's light, and there's swells, right? So when I went in the training getting my initial qual in the Hornet, there's a certain amount of sea state they'll accept and everything. But now I'm a big boy, so we go out, and I tell you what, man, I come around the corner, daytime. It's it's evening, it's nice. Come around the corner, and the old boats, she's heaving in the water, and the LSOs, they start talking to you. And when they start talking to you, you're supposed to disregard the ball. Well, I'm super new at this, and as I'm coming in, man, I mean, I'm staring at back of the ship, and then when the rear end goes down, it looks like you're gonna like fly into the it really messes with where you think you are as far as, am I too steep, too shallow? But you're just supposed to be flying that 3-degree glide slope. And man, they're trying to talk me in, and I'm the new guy. Pretty stable approach till I get kind of in close, and I'm like, I'm coming aboard, and I crash this thing. Left main mount hits. Sorry, right main mount hits. Partially collapses. The airplane yaws really hard to the right. And I distinctly remember there's a yellow shirt there who's a director on the carrier, and the yellow shirt is standing in the area where you're supposed to you stop after you grab the cable, fold your wings, you do a 90. He's supposed to be there to get you out of the area. So the jet yaws hard right, and I'm like, I remember staring at him, and I remember just pushing the rudder, pushing the left rudder to get it back down the angle, full blower, boom, and I'm off. And I mean, this happens like this. And of course there's screaming power calls, right? And that just, and I'm the new guy, and I really like my squadron, and it took me so much work to get here. And if I have no reputation, I'm building my reputation, and it's not starting out so hot, right? So if I can't do this, they'll get rid of you. That's how it works in the Navy. So man, I take this thing around, jet's damaged for sure. And I'm like, please send me to the beach. Like mentally, I'm done. Like that. I thought I was going to die, kind of thing. Right. And the air boss is like, I forget what number it was, 403. He's like, yeah, hey, we're going to bring you around, try it again. I mustered my strength, put on my big boy voice. All right, sir, no problem. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. And yeah, man, we come back around again. The LSO is like, look, dude, you got to listen to our voice, reference your VSI, which we never do. That's all meatball lineup, angle of attack, meatball lineup, angle of attack. So I'm like, VSI, okay. So I come around again, and it's the same thing, man. The ship's heaving, and I crash this thing, crash it into the one wire, and like by the grace of God, I grab a cable, and the jet comes to us. It yaws hard to the right again because the right main is partially collapsed. So it yaws to the right really hard again, but it catches a wire, and I stop, and the airplane's leaning over, and I never forget my XO Cajun walks out. He appears from the island, and he does it like he's got his visor. He does one of these, and he goes, puts his visor down, and keeps walking. And I'm like, I'm sitting there, and he's like, shut it down, 403. We got you, So I shut it down. They bring the tractor over and tow this thing out. And the Hornet's got two tires on the nose mount. One of them's in the air, right? Because this thing is leaning. And I mean, there's thousands, like, the plat cam is on you, right? So like everybody from the cook to the guy cleaning the bathroom, they're all watching, right? We taxi in, and I mean, like mentally it's crushing, right? Because I had just gotten to the squadron. It's like, I made it through training. I'm finally like, I'm a Navy fighter pilot, dude. Like I'm in. And dude, that shook my confidence like to the core. Cause I literally was like, I have to be able to go live at sea for like 9 months and do this every day. I can't even do it one day. This is my first time trying to land on the ship out of training, you know? And I'm like, maybe that's it. And, you know, luckily, kind of like, you know, you were saying, Mover, you know, your flight lead there kind of grabbed you and you guys debriefed everything that went wrong. Well, that we had really good CAG paddles, you know, the LSOs, and you know, he just, yeah, I knew I was gonna get a talking to, and he, man, and I, you know, you take it like a man, and he just pulled me aside and super calm, and he was like, dude, this is what you need to do, and basically it was, man, you need to get a recording of a good pass and watch it over and over, and I mean, I did exactly what he told me, and I tell you what, man. Probably the hardest flight I ever did as a Navy jet pilot off a carrier was the next flight. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
The
yeah.
next one after that. Because here's what happened. Because I broke that jet was done. They put it in the hangar. Fast forward about an hour and a half later, it was nighttime. My buddy Shady, long bolters. So his mains touch down, but the front goes off the edge and he almost hits the water. Like he goes beneath the deck at night. And, you know, I remember him saying the lights just went like this. And he said he pulled the stick all the way back, blower. I mean, he looked like an Atlas rocket. It's like, keep going, dude.
Wow.
So they're like, okay, no more flying, right? The conditions were pretty gnarly, even, you know, for two new guys, especially. But so we didn't get it was a long time before I got back in the cockpit, which was in my mind not good, because I wanted to get back in there and get this monkey off my back. But man, that next flight, I just remember like I must have watched like I had a HUD tape recording of a really nice pass, man. And I watched it like at that. It's crazy, Noonan, the things you do. So I like Iron Maiden. So I listened to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son about 1,000 times with my headphones on in my room. And I watched the last 15 seconds. I just kept rewinding it at that pass over and over. And dude, probably the best feeling I had was the next time I went out, I had no problems, dude. Grabbed like the 2 or the 3, whatever, and I was good. And after that, I never, ever had another bad night or day behind the ship. So my worst night or my worst time ever at the ship was my first time out of training. And that was a big hurdle for me to get over. But dude, it set me up for having, once I got over that, dude, I was supremely confident, basically, you know, that I could safely get aboard. I didn't have the best landing grades, but I could safely get aboard. But I mean, that's my story, breaking the mains on a Hornet. And it did it. They had to replace the on both of them. The has a trailing link gear. They had to replace both of the trailing link there on both mains because I cracked him. I blew the chrome right off the struts, man. It was crazy. It was a hard landing. So join the Air Force.
And like I don't think that's like the part, like, unless you're in the fighter world, people don't understand is like how fragile your reputation is. And you're in a squadron with, you know, 25 or 30 people. Yes. And you're just like praying, not me, not me, not me. And to your credit, what's amazing is you get, for me, it was like my internal thing. You get one kind of major F up, but then you played it. Like if you haven't ever screwed up, it's good. Like you got that card under your sleeve and you're all right. But I mean, you've never met a more confident, insecure group of people in your life because it is just such a pressure cooker of, man. And I always wondered, I asked myself, I'm like, you know, so like weak, I guess. I don't know where you're going to come, but I was like, I'll probably be the guy that, you know, is a smoking hole in the ground before he punches out, because there's a piece of me would rather die than completely be spatial D'd and like, oh, I spatial D'd and punched out of the jet as opposed to try to save it because I couldn't see myself ejecting. But there's just so, to your point, like so much pressure and scrutiny in that place, which is one of the reasons it makes it such an effective, you know, time-honored machine of being fighter pilots, you put so much pressure on yourself. I cannot imagine. You're good on you, man. That's the story. Insane.
Noonan, you talk about pressure on yourself.
That would just crush a lot of people. They'd never recover from that.
It was close, man.
Well, that's a good point, Noonan. So I'm going to bring up your book, Fly Into the Wind. Great book. Everybody should listen to it, watch it, read it. It's not a movie yet. You can't watch it, but it should be. It should be a movie. It not just the peer pressure, right, that you talk about just now, but the human psyche. We do things that are inherently dangerous with extreme compartmentalization, because if everybody looked at the risk every time, you'd never do it, right? You'd look at this and go, we're a bunch of idiots. There's no way we're strapping ourselves to, 12,000 pounds of JP8 or JP5 or whatever it happens to be with bombs and all that stuff. And we're going out at faster than the speed of sound with descent rates that are in the tens of thousands or more, depending on what you're doing. And how fragile that human psyche is. And I experienced it firsthand. And you talked about it in your book. You gave a pretty specific example of a time where you go out, something bad happens, and you have to get back. It's the Top Gun. The one thing about Top Gun, the first movie, that I did not appreciate until it happened to me is the get back on the horse part. When something shakes you to your core and you end up like, I can't do this ever again because you are anxious about that bad thing happening again, it is very hard to recover. And I remember your audiobook I listened to after that happened to me, and it helped. Do you remember that story? You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you do. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. And like a little bit of a flex moment here to put it in context. But I was the fastest guy to 2-ship and 4-ship flight lead in our squadron for like years. I was going to weapons school. That was the path, all this kind of stuff, fast burning. I went over, had a great deployment in Iraq. And I came home, and you're just 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right? Dude, I am raging in the jet and in the bar, and I'm just pure fighter pilot at this point in my life. And you become who you are is what you do. That is right where I was, which is the most dangerous spot. I don't care what your job is. And I go out for a routine BSA. So we're going to drop BDUs. So just our, little smoke charged, go to the range and bet. And it was a cold morning, and there were a 2-ship, and I'm number 2. So I'm totally relaxed, right? I'm back in Tulsa. I'm not in combat. I'm going for BSA. It's a Cabu day, big bubble, no trouble. We were flying Pratt & Whitney 229s. And one of the things you had to get the gear up before 300 knots, which we're like, oh my gosh, it came fast
on a day for sure.
30-degree day. And my flight lead took off. And so I light the afterburner, and it's that like blue sky, and he's like disappearing. And I remember, I won't say the guy's name, but he was kind of a dick. That's always like, you always want to fly with good guys. You always like, hey, never lock me up on departure. And so to keep the visual, like you throw your ball out there and lock him up. So he would get so pissed. Don't you be locking me up on departure, blah, blah. You just fly your thing, and, you'll find me. So that's in the back of my head. So as I'm going down the runway, I'm trying to stay visual of just that tail end on this blue day, this super glary. And, I pull the jet off the runway, and I throw the gear in the well, and the jet kind of sinks a little on me. Go out, kick his butt on the range, like every bomb and strafe, and come back, king of the world, land, go to lunch, come back, and the dreaded call, you just know, like, hey, it was Captain Rooney, please come to the ops desk. That's weird.
Right.
Yeah, it's like your stomach goes from 30,000 feet already. I'm like, that's not normal. So I go to the ops desk, and there's like 2 maintainers there, and I'm like, oh, dude, what's going on?
What I leave.
Hey, man, hey, you need to come out to the jet. And it's just the walk of like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I go out there and they were like, hey, look under there. And one of the reasons that the jet was so quick to overspeed, all I had was a centerline bag on it. And, and we had the BDUs, which is total non-standard, setup. And so they were like, hey, look under there. And I look under the fuel tank and it's just drip, drip, drip. And they were like, hey, we're going to take the tapes in. And so we take the tapes in, the jet, tells you everything it does. And I had started to retract the gear and my plane was still on the ground. So the compartment, I'm watching him. I think I pull up, but I don't get too, I'm going to tell you my lesson after this. But anyway, so I roll up and the jet settles back on the fuel tank on the runway. And we'd had 2 months prior to that, we'd had a guy that did that on a cross country and it blew up underneath him. And he jettisons this fireball of a fuel tank and comes around. And he had gotten FEB. He survived it, which is a flight evaluation board for people listening. I end up getting an FEB out of this and went from like the best to the leper, right? Like everybody, like you said, like the cook is watching, like freaking everybody. And it's one of those things, in another second, big picture, that thing could have blown up underneath me. I eject, I'm dead. I mean, like, who knows what happens? And so often in life and in flying, I thank the good Lord that I've gotten really big lessons with relative small consequence. And on this day, for everybody that flies on here, like the thing I always repeat to myself now is, I got 2 positive climbs, right? I mean, I gave my HUD, I'm away from the ground, all this before my gear goes up. And I'd never been taught that habit, which is crazy from whatever the instructor was in that thing. To think you got to check that you're airborne and throw the gear up is crazy. But mover, to your point, dude, it just crushes you. And it was months before, I came back and you are, run through this huge level of scrutiny with your peers who you fly with that are sitting on the, FEB evaluating, hey, is this guy fit to fly moving forward? And it ended up being a patch on the tank and, hey, no big deal. And you press on. But these are, moments. And it's one of those, like, it's the famous, the Lombardi quote, right? It wasn't Lombardi, but the man in the arena. Who is that an FDR? The man in the arena.
It's probably Mike Tyson.
I'm not allowed. Yeah, I'm not allowed to.
According to Gonky, all quotes could be attributed to Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson is his only quote that I love is everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And so this was a Mike Tyson moment. Just bloody bruise, but it's like when you're going to be in the arena as a fighter pilot, if someone would just tell you start now, it's like, hey, dude, you're going to have some hard moments. Everybody does.
Can't hide anything. Can't hide it.
Cannot hide it. I mean, you are naked at all times. And one of my other life answers I love is hide nothing, have nothing to hide, which is a standard I try to live by. But yeah, so that was a huge one for me. Another, how about you want a general aviation scary moment?
We got all the time in the world, sir. Continue.
Yeah. And this goes back to like being confident. Like, so I was flying a Citation Mustang, which is the smallest little Citation jet that they make. Awesome little airplane. And I'm going from Tulsa to Chicago and go up there and I do a quick weather check, which I'm kind of infamous for. They tell a pretty funny story about us leaving Eglin for Key West on a Friday. And I was like, hey, everybody check the weather. And we go down there. It's like a level 5 thunderstorm. I was like, dude, yeah, I looked outside. It was perfect. Right. I could see all the way to Key West. Did you check the weather? Yeah, man, it's Kaboo. And, but anyway, and I've got my wife and my daughter on this jet with me, and the forecast was just kind of, it's going to be okay. But anyway, we get up to Chicago. I'm landing out at DuPage, which is the airplane that is west of O'Hare, the airport that's west of O'Hare. And we get up there, and there's a bunch of there are low clouds. We've had winter storm move in, and there's all kinds of icing issues. And the way they'd routed the traffic in was O'Hare, everything was coming in through this gate. So they had to push everybody down low that was going into DuPage. And I'd never been in like ice. That's not our world as fighter pilots. Like we if you fly through it, it doesn't stick, but you just basically you're never ever in it. It's not an issue. And didn't take it near as seriously as I should, and fly up there and end up on an ILS, wrong direction. Not wrong direction. So the wind is the only ILS they have there. Don't look this up, who's ever out there, because I may not have this right. But
someone will fact check this. Yes,
somebody else fact check. I can pull up on my phone right now, and I'm not going to. It doesn't matter. But the only ILS is north-south, and there was this really strong east-west crosswind that was going, and that runway did not have an ILS to it. So I'm at crosswind limits on this airplane. It is night, and it is icing like crazy. And coming in, there's about a mile visibility and a 400-foot ceiling. And so coming in to this thing, and I'm just looking outside, and you got boots on it, but there's just like ice is holding on to everything. And I touched down on the runway, and this is a lesson for everybody that's out there listening, and we're center line, right? Land on the center line, aim point airspeed, land on the center line. Well, when it's icy and you have a 30-knot crosswind coming, you do not land on the center line. So I land on speed on the center line, and here goes this crosswind, and here goes my airplane. And it's like, braking's probably 2 out of 5, something like that. And now it's just, Sir Isaac Newton is in control of this airplane. And the only thing that like saves me in this, and I thought quick enough not to fully slow the airplane down, so I still had some rudder authority. So don't hammer the brakes. If I hammer the brakes, it's not like when you hit ice when you're driving a car. I still have a little rudder authority to like fly on the ground to offset the wind that is pushing me. Anyway, I taxi in, and I'm like, my whole body is like shaking as I pull up there and shut the engine down. And I look at my wife, and she's looking at me, and her eyes are like this big. And I'm like, aren't you glad you married a fighter pilot, baby?
Oh, perfect.
No, but for everybody that flies out there, I think the lesson from all of our stories is, dude, yesterday does not matter. Today, you got to be an unbelievable pilot, because the air does not care. And you guys talk about these accidents, and there are a lot of great people that, lose lives and give jets back to taxpayers. And this is not a hobby. This business that we are in, it is life and death. And I'm nervous every time I go fly. General aviation, I was nervous every time I went to fly a fighter jet. And
try flying helicopters.
I would never ever fly a helicopter. So expand on that, Mover.
That's I heard a quote the other day about fixed wing pilots. They're like, yeah, maybe something bad happens, maybe not. The helicopter guys are like, when's the bad thing gonna happen? Because it's a constant. This thing should not be flying. When is the next shoe gonna drop? And it's true. I mean, it's a lot of moving pieces. But I think it's the same mentality as flying fighters. If you approach it with the respect it deserves, and adhere to the emergency procedures, it can be relatively safe.
Yeah, Noonan, would you say, I guess I'm of the opinion, I always felt and thought it was safer flying fighters, man, just because you had so much more performance. Like when I was, I've got a lot of time in Cessnas and small planes, and like you just don't have the excess power to get you. Like if you were to pick up any ice in a Cessna 150, your VSI is going to go one direction. I mean, I don't know. I always felt safer in a high performance jet just because its performance could get me out of scenarios I might find myself in,
Yeah. 100%. Skid says you can't eject from helos in the comments. I just found the comment button over here. This is so cool.
Well, so we've had all right. So we have had some comments. We should. Some people have talked.
Yeah.
Thomas says, "God bless you, Colonel."
Thanks, Thomas.
So thank you, Thomas. Also says, "Evening, gents. Could you speak about the challenges of the fixed wing and rotary wing pilots fighting the LA fires, visibility, turbulence, and stuff? I mean, heroes, all of them." I think they have ground facts, right? They have forward air controllers that help call in the drops, and now they're flying it in a KC-10 equivalent, DC-10.
Yeah, that is. I don't know if you've seen the footage. That thing is awesome, dude. I look at that and be like, that would be really fun.
Yeah. Sluggish and non-maneuverable, doing maneuverable things.
Low altitude.
Low and slow.
Dropping red. My daughter asked me, why is it red? And I actually looked it up. Obviously, it's a fire retardant, but it's also so they can see where they're dropping. It paints the ground, so it gives them a visual on where the stuff lays down.
I didn't know
that. Wicked Spider Black says, "Hello, gentlemen. Happy Monday." And Doug Skid says, "Noonan is the man."
Skid
is a friend of the channel still to this day.
He was part of our T-38 aggressor clan.
Yes, and Skid, we should tell a story for him, because my favorite picture, and it pops up when he calls me, is him in the cabriolet version of the T-38. So
no canopy.
Flying a T-38. This dude is heroic, right? He was everybody's hero, most positive guy I've ever met. He was 100%. Flying fighters at age 55. And I was like, I want to be Skid when I grow up.
Yeah.
And he was on departure out of Eglin, and the canopy separated from his T-38, and he had a incentive rider in the back seat who was within seconds of ejecting. His backseater was going to punch out on him, and he peels off and lands it. But man,
that's how he got his haircut. He had a full head of hair before that.
That's right. After that, only on the sides.
Let a bald guy come on your show. I feel.
Crazy Pete says $5 for folds. In 2 years on base honor guard, I presented about 200 folded flags to next of kin. Simplest and toughest job I ever had. Wow.
Amen.
Greg says, great podcast. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. Love the channel. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, King Dragon. John, friend of the channel, is actually out in SoCal, I think, in that area. As a first responder. So he says, thank you, Dan, for everything you've done for the first responder community. God bless you and your organization. I'm glad you talked about that, Noonan, because that changed from
started.
Yeah, that's a new thing. And I'm glad you're doing it, man, because there's so much out there. I've worked with the National Police Association. They sponsored Luna's training to become a therapy canine. And it's good to see the support. It's good to see the support from organizations like Folds of Honor.
Yeah, we're just getting started. I'd say, look at our country. Look at Los Angeles. If there weren't first responders out there right now, the whole 18 million people live in LA County. That whole thing would have burned down.
Yeah, there'd be no more LA.
Dude, we got to take care of the people that take care of us. There are
Nathan,
a lot of great charities out there, and take care of our military and first responders.
So Alec is very young. In fact, I was going through my emails today, and he started emailing the channel when he was 5. So Alec has grown with us. Hey, Mover and Gonky, it's Alex. I wanted to fly, but more because of you, Mover. It was your car. How I found you on here. I use the 3 rules of being a pilot. Now I got friends that follow me. You guys are heroes to me. That is
wow. That's awesome.
Incredible. And I'm embarrassed I don't know the 3 rules. What are the
aviate,
Gonky,
navigate, communicate?
Ah,
yeah,
of course. Of course. I was like, don't be a douche.
Sit down, Mover.
2 Joker bingo. I'll take the no. Damn
we'll
it.
teach him that when we gets a little older, dude.
Yeah. Don't end up in jail. Plexi never would have guessed that Gonky's an Iron Maiden fan.
Oh yeah.
Janitor is back. Would like to know, Noonan, 2 things. Which water bomber would you fly? And also, do you give to the NFL refs look the other way for the Chiefs fund? If you notice the helmet in the background.
That's great.
Patrick Mahomes fully funds that NFL Chiefs refs look the other way fund, as far as I know.
Folds of Honor has no business in that. But
No.
You go to the games, right? I mean, you spend some time. You're a big Chiefs fan, and
big Chiefs fan. I don't. Yeah, it's funny. Like I'm totally old. I am the Geico commercial. I could go to lots of NFL games. Week 8 was Folds of Honor NFL week. They're like, "What games do you want to go to? This is so awesome." And I'm like, I don't want to go to any games. I like being on my couch, being with my kids. I don't like at some point in life, crowds and travel, and that just tips the scale on fun. So I might go to a playoff game in Kansas City, but yeah, big Chiefs fan. And so that's fun. We got to go to the Super Bowl last year, which was amazing with my 15-year-old.
Wow.
Well, Noonan, we are not kicking you out. However, we have discussed that you're a busy man, and we appreciate your time for joining us this evening.
Yeah. You guys, I'm gonna fanboy on you for a second. Amazing pilots. Number one, I flew with both of you. Amazing people. You're on my YouTube favorite. I watch everything that you guys come out with. I'm just super proud, man, to call you guys friends. And you are holding the standard of excellence by which we have been blessed to have learned as fighter pilots in our community. You're holding the standard of trust, which permeates everything we do in our business. And just keep it up. And I'm honored to come on, and I'll come on and shoot the crap anytime you want.
Oh, yeah.
We'll club a few baby seals and
talk about Chuck Yeager, get the whole channel shut down. It'll be great.
Yeah. For forever. But man, those are unbelievable stories. And, it's inevitable. Whether it's in the jet or out of the jet, my parting health minute, it's like everybody's going to struggle in life. That is the common denominator in this world. And you're going to write your legacy by what you do when it doesn't go your way. And that is every day. And for me, it's, staying close to God, my family, and my friends, and praying for everybody out there that's tuned in. Thanks for watching. And I hope we have a great year of impact together. And I'm honored to call you guys bros. And Gonky, you have the greatest call sign in pilot history.
You know what, man? I'm proud of that. Thank you, dude.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, man.
All right.
It's been great. It's been great seeing you again, bud.
Yeah. This was so fun. Golly.
Anytime.
I do it every Monday, but it's past my bedtime. I got to go to bed. I got to get up early and go to Nashville to ride the Clydesdales on a call tomorrow. Clydesdales.
We are lucky to have you as a friend.
Yeah. 100%, dude. Awesome.
Thanks.
Here's to doing the next right thing together, boys.
All right. We'll see you,
All
man.
right.
Thank you so much, man.
Have a good
See
evening.
ya.
See ya. Wow.
Well, Gonky, what else can we say? That's the end of that. What's the? I don't know,
man. No, it's so great. You know what, man? It's like I don't know. It's like kind of getting the band. Like when Skid comes on, we get to talking and stuff, dude. It's almost like we're back in the old squadron spaces.
Yeah,
shooting the breeze, living the dream. There I was. I
tell you what, man, it's a high bar when Noonan's telling you
Yeah, dude.
Good things. It's a tough bar. I don't know if we can hold that as standard.
Well, yeah. I mean, for our viewers, like within the fighter pilot community, I mean, Noonan is.
Oh yeah,
everybody
knows Noonan.
Yeah, dude.
Like,
he's the one.
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
the one.
No, it's awesome, and I think my favorite is doing the flyby.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic, man. I mean, like I'll remember that entire weekend, that experience. I'll remember for the rest of my life, man. And I think what it is, man, is, like everything he does is, is really for others. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it. That's what makes it so cool. Like it's, like when you go to these events with him, like he speaks and you get to hear what he's saying, and it's like the guy is just, man, he just genuinely cares. I mean, like he told me, I mean, he cared so much that, the story of seeing the fallen soldier coming home had such an effect on him, man. I mean, it's amazing.
No, I'm serious. His book, Flying to the Wind.
It's good. It's really good.
Really
excellent.
When I was, struggling with some T-38 stuff, and I had a little, I guess, self-doubt, listening to his story, the story he told, he does it in the book. He does a great job of tying it to mental health. And that whole book really was, you can't help but be inspired. You hear the stuff he does and you're like, damn, what am I doing with my life? Why am I? What are we doing, Gonky?
Yeah. Dude, I know it. Dude. He's just, do you remember? I'll tell one more Noonan story, but do you remember we were like going to lunch, his drill, I forget, it's the standard gaggle of us T-38.
Oh, I know the story you're about to tell. Yes, I do remember.
It's just Noonan, man. We got like Noonan's part of the group. We go into the food court. We all get our chili cheese fries and wiener dogs, whatever, and we're all complaining about
wiener dogs.
Well, hot dogs. Sorry, wiener hot dogs. Anyways, we're all like, right? Remember, Mover? We sit down and we're eating and we're complaining and whining, and like Noonan just like I just noticed
gets
him.
up.
Yeah, he just gets up and like just leaves, and like I think maybe it's just me and you and a couple of other guys are kind of like, what is Noonan doing, dude? And like this guy had with his kids that are like hobbled in, and this is on base. He hobbled into the food court there. And hobbles over and sits down, and Noonan goes over and sits down next to him and starts talking to him. The guy gets all teary eyed and, and they half hug, and Noonan comes back, and we're like, we're still in the middle of complaining about our food, whatever.
We're losing our jobs.
We're losing we're losing our jobs.
We can't fly our cool pointy jets that we do for funsies.
Yeah. And Noonan comes back, and he just and we're like, hey, is everything okay? He's like, oh man, he's like, I saw that guy walk in, and I went over and talked to him, and he's like, he got blown up in Iraq, and I told him, like, hey man, my name's Dan Rooney. We can help you put your kids through college. Call my people, tell them, and that's why it caused the guy to break down. And you're sitting there, you're like,
what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, right. You're sitting there, you're like,
what have I done for somebody else lately?
Yeah, what have I done today other than complain? But it's just like dude, such an inspiring person, dude.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah. Let's see. We got some things from the audience as well. I think I don't know if this was another one or not, but thank you, King Dragon, if I didn't say it already. It's just awesome. V5 SAR Hemnetics says, any comments from your military POV on the Hill HX-50 helicopter design, robust or no? I know what you're talking about. That's the one that Pilot Yellow is involved with. Looks cool. Interesting to see if it actually gets built, and if it does get built, what the price is going to be. So, I mean, it looks cool. I like retractable gear helicopters that look like Airwolf for sure. Brian says they have lead aircraft making a few passes, and they mark the drop spot with a puff of smoke for those water bombers. Yeah, so like a FAC-A skid, you could go do that.
Oh yeah.
Gundam Blade says, evening clean cut and shave. Mover and Gonky. We don't want to talk about that. How was your weekend, Gonky?
It was good, man. Yeah, we had drill weekend, got to hang out with some great people, and yeah, it was actually really good, man. I enjoyed it actually. How was yours?
Busy.
It was busy, but
It was
you
busy.
know,
I felt like
busy
I
was
didn't
good.
stop. Busy. I feel like I'm living in some kind of alternate universe most of the time. It's very
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
People are watching all the time.
People are watching. Constantly reminded of that.
I keep forgetting that people actually watch.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's just me and you, and we're just talking to ourselves.
To ourselves, exactly.
Yeah.
This technology will do that to you.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about first? You had some stuff on the Jeju update. You want to talk about that first, or you want to talk about Eglin tanks punching?
Let's do that. Let's do the Eglin thing first. Dude.
So I covered this on my channel. Doug, do you have that article? No, probably not, since you didn't know what we were going to randomly pick from the hat. Hold on.
I thought it'd be cool because it's an F-16 and you're an F-16 guy.
It's up. You can grab it.
That's what she
We've
said.
already heard one fuel tank story. What?
Well, so I covered this on my channel. Gonky, I want to get your opinion on it. That is not an accurate representation of the aircraft. I mean, yes, it's an F-16D model Eglin test. But so what happened? F-16 dropped a fuel tank on a Florida neighborhood on January 7th. Right now, it's unknown whether it fell off or was jettisoned, but it was pure luck. No one was hit. I think they used metric and said it was like 300 meters from a school.
Wow.
It fell in Niceville, close to an elementary school that was closed. It ended up landing like between two vehicles, like in a driveway, but didn't hit. No property damage, really. Scroll down, Doug. I think they got a picture of it. Yeah, and the manager said, by the grace of God. So you can see there, the front cap popped off, you know, and now all the fuel that was remaining. There's a lot of people standing around. Obviously, there's probably some hazmat. Investigations underway. I don't know. I mean, it's a dropped object, but, you know, to level, it's obviously not a Class A or anything like that. So it's not going to be an AIB per se, but there will be a safety investigation. And that's it. So when I talked about it, I forgot about the funniest thing we used to call it. You guys call it the Admiral's doorbell?
We just call it the doorbell.
Yeah, the OG's doorbell operation group, because you press that, you're going to get to go talk to the man. But in the F-16, and you know, if you want to go watch it on my channel, I actually go through the boldface. There are several specific things in both the Hornet Fs, every fighter, any fighter that's got something that can be hung, so to speak, from wings or centerline tanks or whatever. Typically, they have carts so that you can jettison, either selectively jettison or completely jettison everything. And the times you would do that are if you're doing it intentionally. Now, they brought up the idea that it could have been unintentional, that something else could have gone wrong, which is very possible. But if you're doing it intentionally in an F-16, it's drag and weight, because we have no ability to dump fuel. And anytime you've got any kind of engine scenario, you are trading airspeed for altitude and trying to get rid of stores, because you're getting into a flame out pattern or a precautionary flame out pattern, because if that engine quits, you're basically a flying projectile, and it's better to land the plane safely than it is to eject into the neighborhood. And a lot of people in my comments, and Gonky, I'd like your comments on this, brought up the idea that, well, how did he not know where it was going to go? And it's like, well, it's because you just punched it off. And it's better to have, I mean, I'm not saying either is a good one, but if I'm weighing what's worse, a fuel tank versus an F-16 into that neighborhood, I'll take the fuel tank. I mean, Gonky, what do you think?
Yeah. So the pilot did intentionally punch the tank.
You know this, or you're speculating?
I'm asking.
We
don't know yet.
We don't know. And if you look at where that neighborhood is, it's off the end of the runway.
Mm-hmm.
There was some speculation on social media that it was part of an unrestricted climb.
Mm-hmm.
That when it came off. So whether that, you know, the G forces caused it to separate,
mm-hmm.
or, you know, you start the unrestricted climb, engine gives you some kind of thing, punch off the store, come back around and land. What we do know is they safely landed the F-16.
Okay.
And they punched off a tank.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, dude. You'd way rather punch the tank off, pray to God it doesn't hit anybody, than crash the tank and the F-16 and possibly yourself into the ground. It's kind of like, we sometimes like in air shows, like right before, like if like when the Blue Angel crashed in Tennessee, people were like, oh, we could see him, like trying to dodge the buildings and stuff. It's like, no, like we all want to think that maybe some of it's true, but like if there's an emergency type scenario, so like if the tank was jettisoned on purpose, something happened to that airplane and the training kicked in, and he did the procedure, right? I mean, then we do the procedure to try to save the airplane and hope that nobody gets hurt as a result of that. I mean, I agree with you, dude. I punch the tank, and you'd rather do that than lose the airplane and possibly kill yourself as well.
Yeah, somebody also brought up, because I read too many comments, even though you tell me not to, the idea that the backseater did it and it was an incentive ride. I find that tough to believe, just because if I could bring up the
so there's been, I know in the Navy there's been times where there's been like a short in the weight on wheels and through the pylon or whatever. So like, as soon as the jet took off, it jettisoned the tank, that kind of stuff. But
the F-16 doesn't have that same way, so it's not mech the same way that could happen.
Yeah. Well, so, until the investigation concludes, there'll be no.
But what I'll show you is that's so unlikely they would have to have done it intentionally, because this is a backseat of an F-16.
Oh wow, I can see it. Yep.
You see the OG doorbell right there where it says emergency jettison?
Yep.
So you would have to, and there's like some little plastic in front of that to keep you from just inadvertently, and it takes some pressure, right? It's a pretty solid button. You do it in sim all the time.
Right.
The idea that the backseater did it, I mean, I've seen, like, I did that mishap report where the French incentive flyer ejected because he grabbed it, because they bunted over, he grabbed the handle and he went.
Oh yeah. Yep.
There's no scenario where you'd reach for something and then your finger goes all the way up in there, so to speak, and punches off that button. It just, it was either intentional or something broke. That's my guess. I mean,
yeah. But the great part about the story is, thankfully, nobody.
Correct.
The only thing that was hurt was the drop tank in this case, and they can just build another one, right? So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I don't live that far away, right? From England, but it'll be interesting to see what they find. And I think probably what we're going to find, I mean, I know we don't like to speculate, but I'll speculate. It's probably something happened that caused him to ring the doorbell and recover the airplane. I mean,
that's procedure.
That's what we're trained to do. Right. That's what you're trained to do.
I've seen, procedure it's boldface, critical action procedures in the F-16. You just do it.
Right.
The consequences of having fighter bases with encroachment of the populace, that's just like when Eglin was first formed as a fighter base, it didn't have, Niceville with the population that it has today. And is this a common occurrence? No, but it is a risk, and it's an unfortunate risk. I mean, we're glad nothing else happened.
Well, Eglin is a really safe airfield. I mean, a lot of your airfields are built right next to the water, so you can fly out over the water and eject, right? I mean, a lot of your planned ejection areas are out over water, so nobody gets hurt. But man.
Well, and that was the other question too. Somebody had raised of, well, why didn't he wait 30 more seconds? And my counter to that is, when you're in a situation that you're doing boldface, 30 seconds could be the difference between that tank and that aircraft being what crashed. It's just, we're a game of inches. It's seconds. It's not, you don't have the luxury. If he had the luxury where he had 30 seconds, he probably could have just turned back around and landed. I mean, like, if you're getting into the semantics of how much time he had a procedure. Now, do we know if it was properly applied? No, we don't. We don't know, but I would prefer to give the benefit of the doubt, because like I said, it could be any of us at any time that it was a boldface or a critical action procedure executed, and they landed safely.
Yeah, and a lot of times, a lot of times, I mean, we're taught to execute boldface in a timely manner. That's why it's boldface, right?
Right.
You don't
Memory
have
items.
time.
They're memory
Right.
items.
You don't have time to get the book out, look it up, read all the notes, warnings, and cautions, think about it, right? It's something's happening. We have to apply the boldface to maintain aircraft control, right? Or possibly, just get out, right? Kind of thing. So, somebody, if you have the wherewithal to do that, you're either super experienced or, but stuff like that can come back and bite you, right?
Yeah.
You don't, there's been plenty of airplanes and pilots lost because they didn't execute the boldface in a timely manner or properly, right? So, like you said, man, it's a game of inches. We're taught a certain way, and that this incident kind of reeks of that, which
we don't know. I mean, based on the location, it looks like it was, obviously you're in the airport environment, so you don't have a lot of altitude to deal with. And I've covered F-16 mishaps where I did a HUD tape, Elizabethtown, I think was the one, and they punched the tanks off, and the wingman goes, okay, mark it, mark, get the mark with the GPS, because it is a dropped object and you will report it, but there's nothing in our cockpit that gives you like a constantly computed impact point or constantly computed release point. You don't know where that thing's going to go. You can you can kind of wag it, but. And then the other question people had is, well, why don't they rig parachutes in it? It's like, well, do you want to increase weight, cost, maintenance? Somebody's going to have to pack that parachute. There's all kinds of, anytime you add stuff to something, and how often are we even dropping drop tanks? I mean, this is not a regular occurrence anyway.
Well, in the Navy, they had the TOFA report, right? Things fall off airplane.
Yeah.
It's happened to me. I mean, I remember driving kind of like noon, and I'm driving home and maintenance calls me, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, hey, sir, where do you think you were at when that panel came off? I'm like, what panel? He's like, there's a big panel missing out of the bottom of your airplane. You didn't see it on the post flight? I was like, no,
must have
missed it. But I had a buddy, man. We did an exercise and finally came back. No cat of 9.
Oh,
gone. Exactly.
I knew a guy that lost his travel pod going cross country.
It happens.
And they're like, hey, sir, how come you didn't bring any luggage? And he's like, what do you mean I didn't bring it? Uh-oh.
but I mean, things fall off airplanes, especially fighters, because there's just more stuff hanging off of them, right? So,
all right. So drone threat continues.
Yeah. Wild.
Is it really called the Super Scooper? I guess
that's what the article said, man. Yeah.
So
it's Canadian.
And that's the thing is, like, the Canadians are awesome, right? Sending down.
Yes, thank you.
Doug, you have that? Is that what that is?
That's
So
it,
the Canadians
right there.
Sent down, and there's some awesome video of this thing landing, scooping up some water or whatever. And then what does it do? It hits a drone, and now it's out of service. And now the FBI is trying to find out who did the drone. And this just reemphasizes our point of the continuing threat. Now, was this a recreational drone of some idiot? Because remember, the Blue Angels almost hit during COVID this guy with his drone within feet trying to get the shot of the formation. Or was this some? I always kind of tend towards, the simplest explanation is probably it was just some recreational amateur stuff because of how good a drone would have to be to actually hit, big sky theory. What do you think, man?
No, this wasn't a lucky or an unlucky, however you want to think about it, occurrence. I just, when I first read this article, I was like, probably some guy had a camera on his drone. He was just trying to get some footage of the fire, or maybe even take a look at what the fire was doing.
Or get some footage of these guys doing their thing, because if you see the video that a lot of these news outlets are showing, they're showing drone footage of the Super Scooper scooping from the water. It's like, like, wait, was that the drone? No, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're just, like you said, a recreational drone person, there's no, you're not aware of any
You should be. You should.
Well, you
take
should
training. Yeah.
You should be, but I mean, you're probably not super privy to like, how they're managing all the airspace as far as, the different firefighting
TFR,
assets.
dude. I don't think there
Is
any
it?
drone ops. Yeah, I think they put TFRs over the drone ops, so
Yeah.
there's none.
Yeah.
This is, but again, is how widely available drones are. I mean, people do this kind of stuff, they.
Yeah. And fortunately or unfortunately, I don't see things like this going away as drones become more popular. Heck, man, when I go to the motorcycle track here, ride dirt bikes, the recovery path for the T6 comes right over the track if they're using, I don't know, North Flow runway. And there's guys flying drones with the cameras, just filming each other riding motorcycles around the track and stuff. There's just
Really, they allow that at the track.
Yeah, dude. Every track I've ever been to,
every race I've been to, they are specific and do not allow drones at the
really.
Tracks. So because I've got a drone, I was like, oh, I'd get some good drone footage of what we're doing, and they do not allow it at like NOLA, MSR Houston, Daytona. Daytona, I understand because it's in the airspace of the Daytona airport, but like New Orleans is not. MSR Houston is not.
No, man. A lot of almost every track I've ever been to since drones and cameras have been a thing. It's guys now granted, they're not flying. I've never seen one high enough, to even remotely get close to a T6, but at the same time, like, this is a unique time in Los Angeles, right? Normally these planes aren't flying this low doing what they're doing.
400 feet typically for a lot of the drone ops and below.
Right.
And
these guys are getting low.
Well, and just think about it, man. Think about this aircraft. It hit the wing, which is still a pretty survivable event, but goes to the engine of one of these
a loaded tanker.
The loaded tanker, the DC KC whatever 10. What is that called? Is that a KC-10 or a DC-10?
I think it's a modded DC-10. I think it's a modded DC-1030. I think. But you're right, man, because take the DC-10 for example. That thing is flying at the edge of the performance envelope on slow flight. So, and it's heavy, right? So you take a drone down a motor and you lose a motor down low, slow, and guess what? If you ever been to Los Angeles, there's mountains.
Yeah,
like there's
there's a video of a DC-10 or whatever barely like dishing it out.
Yes,
and you just sit there going,
yeah, exactly. So these firefighting, these firefighting pilots, they are trying their best to get the agent exactly where it needs to be, because obviously not only is a lot of money at stake, but there's literally lives at stake here, right? So and they're not banking, they're praying to God that like, all the engines are running when I go.
They need everything to work
right,
just for normal ops. They don't need the additional. No, you snuff a motor, and if they got to pull out in front of a mountain, that might be it, dude. There's no. So it's you're right, dude. Now that I think about it, it makes sense to put, hey, no one's flying in here unless you're firefighting effort. That's typically what they do. Like New Orleans, after the terror attack, they had a drone TFR.
They did.
Actually had a straight up TFR. They just not just drone, but it was a TFR.
Everything. Yeah, that makes sense, man. Let the workers work, right? Let them do their job to try to stop the fire.
And I was talking to a friend of ours. There is emerging tech for anti-drone operations that law enforcement is now trying out and will be using, especially at big events and stuff like that. So I think that the threat has been recognized and realized. The problem is going to be identifying and quickly intercepting, right? That's going to be the next phase, right? You figured out how to stop it, how to take it down without threatening the populace, which it's still, anything falling from the sky is going to be a threat. Even the drone itself, like if you take out the drone with some kind of technology that can take out a drone, well, the thing's got to fall somewhere unless you can figure out how to hijack it and land it safely. So there's always going to be emerging threats with drone tech, but I think they're at least headed in the right direction and thinking in the right direction. And the onus is going to be on drone operators to do the right thing. It's almost the Wild West. Because yes, you have drone ID, and yes, you should be doing that, but people can still buy a cheap drone off of Amazon or Temu or whatever that has none of that stuff and just do whatever they want.
Right. Yeah. It's, we talked about it as far as like, in combat, the drone problem. And then here we are in a civilian type scenario where, drones are an issue because, an airplane actually hit one, it's damaged. Now it's out of service. Right. So, I don't know, man. It's
selfish. It's what it is.
Yeah. You're right. If my town was burning down,
right.
I just know, man, I'm going to leave, do what I can to save whatever. But like at the end of the day, it's like, you got to let the professionals do their thing. These, all your firefighters, all your law enforcement, they're highly trained individuals for this kind of stuff. Let them do things. Don't get in the way. They will ask you if they need your help,
Yeah.
It's aggravating.
Yeah. That's always going to be a threat. Speaking of threats, China. You got this one.
Yeah, Doug. Hey, Doug, you have this one up. So I thought this was, there we go. Chinese military is the largest and most modern it's ever been. Edwards Air Force Base commander warns. So they do a lot of testing and stuff there at Edwards. So this is by 2027 in the areas west of the international date line where U.S. assets are deployed. China will outnumber U.S. forces about 12-1 in modern fighter jets, including 5-3 in fifth-gen aircraft, 3-1 in maritime patrol planes. So the article goes on to talk about the fact that at sea, air, we're outnumbered. And then it also talks a little bit about, scroll down a little bit, Doug, he talks about how right there, talks about how the Chinese have basically infiltrated our infrastructure. So there's at least a dozen telecom companies that admit that they've been compromised, the general said. Adding to this, has left American networks open to surveillance of top government officials and their communications. And he says, the CCP knows every call my government phone has made for the last 4 years. It's General Weichert. And they're still there. We can't get rid of them. That's what uncertainty and risk looks like. And it's creating a very dangerous world right now. So, the fact that we're outnumbered, that, 20 years ago, when I first started flying fighters, I remember first studying the Chinese threat, as a young Hornet pilot, and we were outnumbered then. Now, granted, the quality of aircraft and training they had back then was further apart from what we had.
Right.
But I asked the question. I'm like, okay, day one we go up against. Hopefully, it never happens. But day one we go up against these guys. They launch whatever 500. I'm like, how many AMRAAM do we even carry on the carrier? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So like, it irritates me a little bit that it's been 20 years and it's like, oh, the problem that we had 20 years ago is still the problem. I'm not saying we should match them 1 for 1 because, in my opinion, as a proud American, I think 1-to-1 we're way better even today. But the part that also kind of gets me is the whole fact that they, by infiltrating our infrastructure and communication, they know what they need to know without ever really fighting us. I don't know. What do you think about that? I think that's pretty, that's pretty strong on their part.
100%. The article also talks about our aging aircraft and how, and that goes back to the stuff I've said all along, right? You need bodies in cockpits. So if we don't have the capable operators to sit in the seats and we don't have the jets for them to sit in, it doesn't matter what they have because we're ill-equipped. And so the article brings up the point that they can potentially manipulate everything without firing a shot. If you have unlimited access to information and everything, information warfare is huge. Intelligence is huge. And so if they know what we know, but even beyond that, buying land around military bases, having surveillance on phones, knowing all the new weapons tech, you know, the stuff that they get just because in some ways we're careless, but in some ways they're just good at what they do. And they have put a lot of emphasis on the espionage program so that they can accelerate the growth of their military in the last 20 years, right? Because like you just talked about, you know, 20 years ago, it was, well, okay, yeah, I'm outnumbered, but it's going to be their, you know, JH7s, you know, it's going to be something, it's not going to be this.
It's going to be J20.
J20. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be something more advanced, but I go back to what we talked about earlier in the show. I prefer peace.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
I think negotiated peace
yeah.
and peace through strength, because we are, whether we like it or not, economically, we do rely on each other a lot. You know, there is a lot of codependence just on the countries, and why we don't, I mean, we do, but I would rather us be strong militarily, but then negotiate peace and negotiate ways that we can coexist than, you know, do a Taiwan Strait scenario or some other South China Sea scenario. Some of that, you know, they say a tiger can't change its stripes. So some of that doesn't matter. They're going to do what they're going to do, and we either stop them or we allow it to happen, because that's just the way it is. And that's how they see themselves as a global superpower. But ideally, we don't get to that scenario, because I don't think anybody wants that war. It's not going to be pretty for any side.
No, it's not, man. I will say this. I mean, having watched China grow over the last 20 years, I mean, it's so clear to me that as a country, as a government, whatever, they are laser focused, man.
They are, but I think if we did end up in some kind of scenario like that, it would not be good for them either. Not just from a military perspective, but just from the fact that they are dependent on the world economy, just like everybody else. And that's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens with, you know, their advancement, what they believe, their one China policy, all the stuff that continues to be a threat and continues to be something that we got to watch. You know, I'd rather, you know, be really cool if we could all work together, but
I know, man, I'm with you, dude. I think peace and making money is more fun than killing and making war. But
meanwhile, I mean, they're on TikTok, right? TikTok's about to be banned, you know, because they're on your phone. So,
yeah,
you know. Anyway, moving on to that. Rob says, thanks for your service. Love the channel. Thank you,
Thanks,
Rob.
Rob. Appreciate that, man.
Brian says KTLA said it was a hobby drone. It looks like one smaller that requires a license, right? Because there's a weight requirement. There's an active TFR. Supposedly arrests are being made for violations. Yep, valid.
Wow.
Gonky, there goes your security clearance. America is so far behind. Just kidding. Glory to Hong Kong. God protect Taiwan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Hong Kong. I love Hong Kong. Yeah,
jail.
Exactly.
There's jail for mover.
It's all right. I'll come visit. Like I said, man, El Chapo grew his. The channel can still grow. If El Chapo can grow his business from prison, you can do it too.
Yeah. So lighter news. I guess Royal Thai Air Force and the Gripen.
Yeah. Apparently they're going to be conducting some some takeoffs and landings from roads. So I think we've showed this a couple times, right? Where they take them out.
Yeah.
To take off and landing on the road. So they're telling so Taiwan's considering buying the Gripen, and they need this thing 800 meters. But you know, Saab says, hey, it'll do it, I think, in 500, right? Is that what the article says? 500 meters, which is pretty crazy. And
requiring 400 meters.
Is it 400?
Yeah, 400 for takeoff, 500 for landing.
There you go. That's it. Sorry. cat shot brain, dude. But so that they're gonna evaluate whether it can do it or not. So the article doesn't really say like how's this thing configured. Obviously fully loaded is going to be a different results than demo clean, but yeah, I'm a big fan of the Gripen, man. I think it'd be a great airplane for them to have, and the fact that it can take off and land from I guess mildly prepared roads, I think would make it a viable contender for them. What do you think?
I mean, any aircraft really can do that if the road is prepared enough, right? I think the difference is sustainability. So can you arm, de-arm, rearm, refuel, turn it with minimal maintenance out in the field? And if you can do that in a small enough area, I think that's how you show that you're viable. And I think that's what the Gripen has done, because they have designed it around this concept versus, like an F-16, which requires a whole bunch of care and feeding. And we've talked about that when we talked about Ukraine and their usage there. It's a very European thing and a very European concept. But reference our previous discussion about China growth as things start to focus on the Pacific and shifting in that region. I think you'll start to see a lot more of these requirements, because what happens when the bases are bombed? Where do you land? Where do you land and operate? Because you still got to go to war. You can't just, I'm just going to go eject you over the water. You got to have contingency plans. And if you can build a network and an infrastructure to where we got plans, if we're involved in this, if it used to be if the commies come a knocking, the red Soviets. Now it's a different threat. It's a different scenario, but still same concept where we have to be ready. And that's what they're trying to buy their next fighter for. I mean, it makes sense because they're geared, correct me if I'm wrong, Gonky, but they're geared more towards defending their sovereignty.
Yeah.
They're not an offensive country.
No, they aren't. We did an exercise with the Thai Air Force. We did one of them when I was in Malaysia, and I'm pretty sure they were flying the F5 back then too, but good. The group that I met was awesome. We had this big fan of Thai food. We had this big party afterwards, and it was amazing. Food was amazing. So yeah, I hope they get. I'm a big fan of that airplane.
It's awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. We got Boris says quantity does not mean quality. Recent China revealed that they found water in some of their missiles instead of fuel. PLA is as corrupt as the Russian army, if not even more.
Yeah.
I don't want to press the test.
Yeah.
I don't want to press the test, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to find out what's in the missile.
It looks scary. We'll just leave it over there.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about to wrap this up, Gonky? The Jeju thing, or do you want to talk about the Algeria Su-57s?
Yeah, do you pick? Either one's fine.
I think we've beaten the horse to death on the Jeju thing.
Okay.
So Algeria and the Russians have been meeting. And so I guess the question then is, what does this mean? So the speculation is there an Algeria Su-57 deal imminent? And this obviously comes from BulgarianMilitary.com. It says Algeria appears ready to finalize a deal with Russia for the purchase of Su-57 fighter jets. A move that would make the North African country one of the few operators of fifth-generation stealth aircraft. And if you... they were the first customer of the MiG-25 and now the first export customer of the Su-57, which a lot of people in our segments that we talked about said that there's no way, right? They said Russia's not going to sell that thing. It's like the F-22, which is nonsense. That's what they were at the air show. Everybody knew that they were going to start moving towards probably trying to find buyers. But it's the interest is not new. They went all the way back to 2019. And they sought to purchase 14 units, but it's a strategic move to counter the regional rival of Morocco, who has Block 72 fighters from the United States. Some reports suggest they've also shown interest in the Su-35. they actually have the Su-30 MKA already. So it's not like they're completely, you know, cavemen. They've got a whole lot of nice fighters in their fleet. Gonky, you've dealt with the Su-30 in Malaysia. But I mean, what do you think, man? I mean, as far as you think this is an accurate report, and what do you think that means for the region in general?
I didn't realize they were the first export customer of the MiG-25.
That's what the article says. That's what the BulgarianMilitary.com says. So,
yeah. I mean, I agree with you, man. I mean, I think Russia definitely wants to export a version of that aircraft. I think it's smart. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, in my opinion, like we don't have enough F-22s, because we bore the burden of the cost as one country for that airplane, right? So like if we would have sold a bunch to Israel, we would have sold a bunch to Australia, whoever, like I get it, you know, make an export version of it. But I think that would have brought the cost per unit down for America, and America could have bought more of the American F-22. We'd have more of them, right? So I think Russia is smart about trying to sell this airplane selfishly, right? So the cost per unit comes down, and then their own military can have more. I don't know if as far as whether that article is true or not. I mean, I don't see why they would, man. They had it at the China Air Show, right? Trying to sell it. I think if they've got the bucks to pay for it, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, like you said, they already have the Su-30, which is a you know, it's an advanced fighter.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to mess with that in a Block 72. I mean, it's a
yeah. I mean, it's a good jet. So I don't see it as being outside the realm of possibilities. And you know, what's it going to do for that region? Well, it's going to stir the pot a little bit, right? I mean, so
well, and one of the things you can talk to based on your time in Malaysia, the Russians don't always sell full kit aircraft, right? You're just because it's a Su-57 doesn't mean it's got all the sensors, all the trons. You know, it could have French avionics, it could have different missiles. It's not necessarily right that it's going to be the one you see in Russia being used in combat operations.
No, so the Malaysia guys told me, you know, because they were looking at all the shiny jets, and they said, you know, the one thing with the A4, the F5, F-18, they said when we bought those airplanes, when they were delivered, when they landed, we could put bombs and gas on them and take them to war like day one. They were fully capable, combat capable aircraft. But MiG-29, the Su-30, that wasn't the story. The Indians really helped them out with the MiG-29. But politics, I don't know what goes on politics wise between, you know, Russia and Asian countries, but I'm sure there's deals made that are probably not in the best interest of the men and women in uniform over in those countries, you know, because I know Malaysia, the guys wanted the Super Hornet, you know, because the old Hornet, rugged, and like I said, the day it landed, it could go to war. They actually had a real conflict shortly after I got there, and they used the Hawk and the Hornet, you know, the two Western jets that they had. So, I mean, that speaks volumes, right? So, you know, the operators don't have time for politics or BS, right? Because we're the ones that are sitting in these things, and we're the ones that are tasked to make it happen. And we want the best tools to make the job happen. Why? Because we don't want to get killed doing it. And then we also want mission success. And, you know, they definitely liked the Western aircraft. So, you know, I would suspect if they did buy the Su-57, they're definitely not going to get everything that the Russian model has. That's just speaking from my experience.
And then the question then becomes, what's the support like?
Right.
Yeah. Can they maintain, you know, is it going to be stealth coded? Is it not going to be stealth? Like, are they getting all the new upgrades that we've talked about previously, the helmet and the nozzles and stuff? There's a lot more to it than just here's your Su-57. Then, you know, it's not a plug and play operation, and the Russians probably just like us, they don't want to give away their secrets, so they're going to give them something that's probably good, but it's not their best.
Yeah. Well, like I said, with the MiG-29, the Russians sold them MiG-29s, and then, they taught them how to take off and land, and they left. And it's like, well, how do we shoot the missiles and stuff? And, so that's where, like I said, the Indians came in and kind of helped them. And they
who's going to help them this time? They're going to be the ones helping people.
Right. Because nobody, right. I mean, there's very few customers right now with that airplane, but, obviously that's in the past, maybe in the future is different. I don't know. But I don't know, man. Here's the other thing, man. Because they have the Su-30, maybe their experience and relationship with Russia is different.
It's true. Yeah, it could be. They could be getting the full meal deal.
Right. Exactly. So, and who knows, man? Maybe Russia's like, well, let you have this plane because we want a presence in your area. Let some of our guys fly with you. Who knows, man? But I don't see it outside the realm of possibility simply because they're already flying Russian equipment, like good Russian equipment.
Well, Gonky, we already talked about the mental health minute, so there's really nothing to add unless you wanted to talk. The only thing I will say, as always, if you're in a squadron, if you're in a military unit, you've always got your DPH, Director of Psychological Health, which is an awesome thing they've added to wings now. Military One Source is an option. 988, if you're thinking about hurting yourself. 911 if you're hurting yourself or somebody else. Just don't make something that's temporary into a permanent problem or a permanent solution for a temporary problem. But as far as go before you're ready, Noonan, I don't think I could ever top any of the stuff that he said. No. Sometimes you just have to take the plunge, and you just have to figure it out. Gonky, you've done that your whole life. You've talked about it. I'm terrible at it, but
I don't know. I disagree with that. You're better than the average person at it, man.
Doug, do you have anything to add to that topic?
Other than it's a really great topic. I mean, when we talk about that a lot, mental health, use a lot of different analogies. Artists are never finished with art. It's just taken away from them, that kind of thing. The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Mm-hmm.
I had not heard it put the way he put it. And it really resonated for me because I do that all the time. And also sometimes I realize I would have never got anything done otherwise.
Right.
You got to get in there and start breaking stuff.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis, man.
You've got to overcome imposter syndrome a lot too when you do that. Because if you sit there and analyze it, then you'll figure out ways that you're not good enough.
Yep. I get a lot of feedback from people about my skills as a mechanic. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything you can. I'm not afraid to start.
To try, yeah.
And I've broken lots of stuff.
Yeah. I hear you, Doug.
Wow. Well, that is a show that we've had today.
Yeah, it's good, man. Gosh, I just having Noonan on
we should have made it season 3, episode 13, or season 13, episode 1. Either way.
Just straight to it, yeah.
We should have added a 13 in there somewhere for him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, well, I guess one more plug for Noonan's book, man. It really is awesome. And there's like the guy, you guys just heard him speak for like an hour, and like just so much wisdom that like any topic, like there's just so much wisdom that he has. It's definitely one of his gifts, and his daughter was not wrong about like he's about to say something inspirational, right? So
yeah,
I'm gonna have that on, dude. One of these sooner than later.
Yeah, awesome. All right, everybody. Well, let's see. Hold on. Let me make sure I don't have any more super chats. Oh, I do. We got a couple things.
Do we?
Let's see. Dory Meme says, it seems like Malaysia is also interested in the Su-57. Could be getting it too. There you go.
I saw that. I did read something about that.
Yeah.
They've been shopping for a while, man. I don't think they're in a hurry.
Dory Meme also says, also is reported that Morocco could be getting the F-35 if Algeria gets the Su-57. Well, it's good for business for Lockheed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they can make enough, right? I mean, they're already struggling to make them for themselves. Yeah. Can they add 14 to their, like, when are you even going to get the first one?
Yeah,
are they going to give them one of the prototypes?
There's still countries waiting, right?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know who the initial buyers are. I don't know, Doug, you started this, so I'm trying to understand. Plexi got surprised by Doug's voice because there was no previous yawn or typing.
Yeah, apparently the chat thought I hadn't showed up tonight because I didn't do anything.
we were all just in listen mode.
Yeah,
right?
That will be reflected in your performance report, Doug.
Right.
Just so you know, that's
Exactly.
noted.
I didn't have to do anything. We had such a great guest.
Yeah, exactly. Dude.
Noonan is awesome. Well, I have nothing further to report, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll see you next week. And what do they say? Like, share. No, I'm not saying that. I'm never gonna say that.
Like, share, subscribe,
you
smash
say
the
all
like
that.
button. I don't
Yeah.
know, dude. These young kids.
Punch that like button.
That's right. Do all that stuff. Subscribe.
Do all the Zoomer stuff. What was the thing we learned? I don't know. We learned something about. Check out Gonky's channel. He's got a new intro.
I'm starting. Yeah, yeah. I'm starting a new. Yeah, Gonky Reacts. I think I'm gonna try. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
luck.
Thank you for watching.